You're sitting across the breakfast table from the man you're supposed to destroy. He's reading the news on his phone, coffee going cold beside him, still in the white shirt he slept in. He laughs at something he's reading and shows you the screen. You laugh too. You've gotten very good at laughing. On the shelf behind him, catching the morning light, sits a small brass metronome, old, dented at the base. It belonged to his mother. He keeps it because he told you this once, quietly, like a confession. He thinks he was supposed to become a different kind of person, and sometimes he needs the reminder. You've never touched it. In 2 years of living in this apartment, you have never once touched it. His name is Nate Rourke, 44 years old, former Army logistics officer turned private contractor. The FBI has been building a case against him for 3 years, arms brokering, sanctions violations, moving weapons to state-sponsored actors through a shell company in Cyprus. The kind of crime that gets State Department briefings and doesn't make the news until 20 people are dead somewhere you can't pronounce. You are Special Agent Emily Brooke, 12 years in, counterterrorism, then organized crime, then here deep cover, long-duration operations. Your supervisor called you the best in the unit. He meant it as a compliment. He didn't think about what it costs to be the best at pretending to be someone you're not. The op was supposed to be 18 months. Get close, get inside, get out. That was 3 years ago. Somewhere in the middle, you married him. The beginning was textbook. Your legend was airtight. Emily Cole, defense industry consultant, Geneva background, fluent in 3 languages, no family close enough to ask uncomfortable questions. She had opinions about contemporary sculpture. She drank Riesling. She was meticulous and warm and slightly guarded, the way intelligent women who have been overlooked tend to be. You met Nate at a conference in Vienna. You laughed at the same panel speaker. He bought you a drink. He was charming in a way that didn't announce itself. Dry humor, genuine curiosity, the kind of listener who makes you feel like the most interesting person in the room. You told yourself that was the danger. Charming men don't think they need to charm you. That's how they get you. You reported back everything, the timeline of his contacts, the dinner in Zurich with the Serbian intermediary, the phone calls he stepped outside to take. Your handler, Agent Reyes, back at Quantico, called your intelligence collection exceptional. She said you were building something that would hold up in court. You were also building something else. You didn't tell her about that part. 6 months in, you knew his whole architecture. The nervous habit of touching his jaw when he was hiding something. The way he went quiet for days after certain calls, like something was eating at him from the inside. The fact that he always read the names of the dead in conflicts he was adjacent to. He didn't think you noticed. You noticed everything. That was the job. But noticing everything meant you noticed the other things too. The way he checked on his elderly neighbor without being asked. The way he talked about his sister's kids like they were his reason for existing. The 3 months he spent in Kabul right after the withdrawal, quietly helping former interpreters get their paperwork through no press, no credit, nobody knew. He mentioned it once and never again. You filed that in a different folder, a folder you weren't supposed to have. He proposed in Lisbon, sunset on a rooftop, the whole thing. You said yes, you had authorization. That's what you told yourself, you had authorization. Reyes had signed off on escalating the legend. Marriage would give you access to financial records, travel documents, the Cyprus accounts. It was a tactical decision. You wore the ring on the flight back and spent the whole 7 hours staring out the window. The wedding was small. His sister, Kara, flew in from Portland. She cried. She hugged you at the reception and said she'd never seen him look at anyone the way he looked at you. You said thank you and excused yourself to use the restroom and stood over the sink for 4 minutes, reminding yourself why you were there. You sent Reyes your wedding photo from the hotel bathroom while Nate was in the shower. She sent back a thumbs up and, great access, keep pushing. You put your phone back in your clutch. You went back out to your husband. When you got home that night, you noticed him move the metronome from a box of unpacked things to the shelf in the study. He didn't make anything of it. He just set it there, ticked it once with his finger, and walked away. You stood in the doorway watching him and said nothing. Here is what nobody tells you about deep cover. The legend doesn't stay on the outside of you. It migrates. You wake up, and for a few seconds, you are Emily Cole, and Emily Cole loves this man. And then Emily Brooke reassembles herself and goes to make coffee, and the whole day is that 2 people trading shifts behind your eyes. The clinical term is identity drift. You've read the literature. You know the symptoms. You have every single one of them. You are still sending reports, weekly encrypted dispatches, photographs of documents you find in his home office casually, never suspiciously, while he sleeps. Financial records you photograph with a device no larger than a thumbnail, names, account numbers, routing codes. The infrastructure of what he built, brick by brick, pass to Reyes, who passes it to analysts who call it exceptional. You are being exceptional. Every day you are being exceptional. And every night you lie next to Nate, and he puts his hand on the back of yours the way he always does, palm up, waiting, not demanding. And you either take it or you don't. Some nights you don't. You tell him you're tired. He says, okay. He doesn't push. He never pushes. In 2 years, he has never pushed you for anything. You write that in a report once. You delete it before you send it. Reyes flies in for a meeting. Beige hotel room, folder open on the bed between you. She tells you Warsaw has escalated. New intel suggests the weapons moved through Nate's network ended up at a strike site in eastern Ukraine. 17 casualties, 2 of them children. She lets that land. Then she asks if you're still operational. You say yes. She looks at you the way experienced agents look at agents they're starting to doubt. Not accusatory. Measuring. She asks if there's anything affecting your judgment that she needs to know about. You say no. You are lying to your handler. This is the worst thing you have done so far. It will not remain the worst thing. On the drive back, you stop at a red light for no reason you can name and think about the metronome on his shelf. The version of himself he was trying to remember. You think about 17 families and 2 children who will never come home. And you think about the man who read the names of the dead in every conflict he was adjacent to. You hold both of those things at the same time. They don't cancel each other out. That's what makes it unbearable. Kara calls you one night when Nate's traveling. She calls to talk about nothing, a dinner party, a movie she saw, and then she says, I just want you to know how happy he is. She says, whatever you did to him, keep doing it. She says he's a different person since you. You tell her you love him too. After you hang up, you sit with that sentence. You pull it apart like evidence. You try to determine if it's real or if you just say things like that now because you've been saying things you don't mean for so long. The line's blurred. You can't determine it. That's the answer. You start protecting him in small ways. You slow walk a report. You let a surveillance window close. You frame a piece of financial evidence as ambiguous when it isn't. None of these things are decisive. Each one could be explained away. But together, they are a pattern, and patterns are what you were trained to find. You are the thing you were trained to find. The breaking point comes on a Tuesday, not with drama, with paperwork. Reyes sends you the arrest warrant, pre-signed. She tells you the operation is moving in 72 hours, with or without your final intelligence on Warsaw. She says your job now is to make sure Nate is home when the team arrives, and to stay out of the way. 72 hours. You look at the man asleep in your bed and you think, he doesn't know. He doesn't know who you are. He married a fiction. He confessed his fears to a recording device. He told you he loved you and you were wearing a wire. You think about Kara's voice on the phone. You think about 17 casualties, 2 of them children. You hold both of those things at the same time, and you understand, really understand that there is no version of this that isn't a betrayal of something real. That night, he is quiet, not his operational quiet, a different kind, the quiet of a man sitting with something heavy. You ask him what he's thinking. He says, do you ever feel like you built the wrong thing? Like you made a series of decisions that each made sense at the time, and then you looked up one day and didn't recognize what you were standing in? He is not looking at you. He is looking at the metronome. He says, I've been thinking about dismantling some of the business, the parts I'm not proud of. I've been thinking about what I'd need to do to become the person I was supposed to be. He is 3 sentences from confessing everything. You know what you should do. Confession to a spouse is discoverable. It would add another thread to the evidence package. Reyes would call it extraordinary. He looks at you. You say it's not too late. He says, how do you know? You say, because you're still asking. People who've given up stop asking. He picks up your hand palm up, not demanding, and holds it. You let him. You lie awake all night with your heart doing something that has no operational name. In the dark, you can see the silhouette of the metronome on the study shelf from where you're lying. Ticking nothing, just keeping time. You could warn him. You've run the scenarios. If you warn him, he runs. 17 families get no answers. Your career ends in federal prosecution. If you don't warn him, the arrest happens. He finds out in a conference room with lawyers and prosecutors that the woman he married was the one who built the case. That every intimate thing he told you was evidence that there was no Emily Cole. There was only Emily Brooke doing her job. Kara will find out. His sister who cried at your wedding will find out. You don't warn him. You can't. You know you can't. But knowing something and living with it are different weights. On the last night, he makes dinner. Nothing special, pasta, a bottle of wine that was too expensive for a Tuesday. He lights candles because he's the kind of man who lights candles on Tuesdays. He asks about the weekend, a drive up the coast, a place his father used to take him as a kid. You ask him to tell you more about it. He does. His whole face opens up. You watch him the way you've always watched him, cataloging everything. Except this time you're not building a file, you're just memorizing. That's your confession. That's all you've got. The morning of the arrest, you make coffee. This is the thing you'll remember, not the handcuffs, not Reyes's face, the coffee. You make 2 cups. You set it on the counter the way you always do, handle facing right, the way he prefers. You stand there looking at it. He comes into the kitchen in the white shirt he slept in. He picks up the coffee. He says, "Good morning." He looks at you and something moves across his face, some small, private tenderness that has nothing operational in it. The door comes in 30 seconds later. He doesn't call out for you. He doesn't look at you during the arrest. He looks at the floor, at the agents, at the ceiling. He goes through the motions of a man whose world is collapsing and who is determined to collapse with dignity. Reyes comes in last. She looks at you. She nods. She doesn't say good work because she's perceptive enough to know that would be the wrong thing. You set your coffee down. You go to the window. You watch them put him in the car. He doesn't look up. On the shelf in the study, the metronome stands exactly where he left it. Nobody has touched it. You don't know if they'll take it as evidence or leave it. You stand in the doorway of the study for a long time, looking at it. Then you walk out. You leave it where it is. You give your full debrief, every file, every recording, every piece of evidence you almost didn't turn over. You give them Warsaw. The name unlocks 2 more networks, 40 arrests across 6 countries. The DOJ calls it one of the most significant counterproliferation cases in a decade. You close 17 open files. The families in Ukraine get answers. Reyes shakes your hand in a hallway, says you did something really hard and you should be proud. You nod. You're reassigned pending psych evaluation. Your evaluator asks how you're processing the separation from the legend. You tell her you're fine. She writes something down. 6 months later, you still check his name in the case management system, just to know the status. He pled guilty on 12 counts, cooperated fully on Warsaw. His lawyers say he was forthcoming. That word. Kara gave an interview to a podcast. She talked about the wife who turned out to be an agent. She said she hoped you could live with yourself. She said it without anger, which was worse than anger. You can live with yourself. That's what you keep telling people. Living with yourself and being at peace with yourself are different weights. You've learned to carry both. You move to a different city. You take a desk assignment analysis, reviewing other agents' field reports. You write notes in the margins about tradecraft gaps and identity management. You're still good at everything. That's not the problem. A letter arrives 3 months after sentencing. 1 page, handwritten, forwarded through legal channels. He says he doesn't know what to call you. He says he's angry and the anger is real and he's not going to pretend otherwise. But he also says, "The night I talked about becoming a different person, I meant that. Whatever you were doing in that room, I think you knew I meant it. I think you believed me. I think you were the only person in my life who believed me, even if that wasn't your job." He signs it with his name, just his name. You sit with the letter for a long time, and then you go to the storage unit where his things were held pending the asset review. The metronome was not classified as evidence. It's in a box with his books and his winter coats, things the government didn't need. You sign the release paperwork. You take the box. You put the metronome on your desk, not the evidence desk, your desk. The one in your apartment, the one with nothing on it except the photo of your mother laughing at whoever was behind the camera. You don't wind it. You just set it there. Some nights late when the apartment is quiet, you sit at that desk, you look at the metronome, you look at your mother laughing, you ask yourself the question you never put in a report. What were you at the end? You were the best. That part is documented, commended, filed. You were the most significant case the division ever closed. You were exceptional. But you were also the woman who made 2 cups of coffee that morning, who set the handle facing right, who held his hand in the dark because she wanted to, not because it was the job. You were the person who believed him when he said he was trying to become someone different. You were both of those things at the same time. You still don't know what to call that, but sometimes late at night, you reach across the desk and you tick the metronome once with your finger the way he used to, and you let it count out a few seconds of silence. Then you stop it. Then you go to sleep. You're still one of the good ones. That's what they tell you. Most days, you're still trying to believe it.